Good morning, good afternoon, good early evening, and in the case of Joshua, it's actually midnight, or close to actually it's past midnight, right? In Japan on Friday.
Yes,
Um,
hello from Friday.
yes, I'm Mori Gazawi. I'm Director and Chief Training Officer at XtremeLabs. XtremeLabs, for those of you who know us, we are a Microsoft ALH, which stands for Authorized Lab Hoster for Microsoft, which means when Microsoft comes out with new content on any technology, we are responsible for providing the labs for that content. We have set up these monthly Microsoft MCT meetings. We do more than one type. So in this case, today it's in the English language, but 2 days ago we ran a Microsoft meeting only in the Spanish language, 100% in the Spanish language. So we are very open to providing these sessions to all of you. Some of you, if anybody's interested to be a speaker in future sessions, please contact me directly. I will put my contact information in the chat box. But with no further ado, Joshua, the stage is yours. Please go ahead.
All right, thank you so much. I appreciate the introduction. Okay, I'm sharing a presentation. Is everybody able to see the slides? You can just let me know with a reaction or with raising your hands in Teams. Either one is fine. All right, thank you. I see some thumbs up. All right, so today I will be talking about training the world, which is a very big sounding topic, but essentially how we're able to take the content that Microsoft has provided to us as Microsoft certified trainers and deliver that in languages that are localized for the people that are attending our classes. And some of the things that I've learned as a Microsoft certified trainer in Japan, I am teaching in Japanese all the time. So my trainings are always in Japanese. I almost never get a chance to speak in English. So if my English is a little bit off today, I apologize. I don't normally get a chance to speak for long durations in English, so I appreciate your patience. All right. Just going into it, I wanted to lead off with a quote about language because I think it's fitting to use a quote in a session about language. Language is not just words. It's a culture, a tradition, a unification of a community, a whole history that creates what a community is. It's all embodied in a language. So, or in our case, as a global community, it's embodied in all of our individual languages. And so to me, when I hear that, I think that when we're training people as a trainer, it's part of our responsibility to make sure that students feel welcome and that they can learn in a safe environment where they can understand the content that's given to them. And I think part of that does tie back to language and understanding how the content is localized and providing that language in a way that's understandable for the listener. So just a little bit of an introduction about me before we jump into the presentation. I am a Microsoft certified trainer, and I work full-time at the Microsoft base in Kanazawa, Japan. So there are Microsoft bases all over Japan. They're essentially a mini Microsoft tech center, if you've ever been to one of those. And we are able to do tech demos with people and also do seminars where we're teaching them Microsoft technology so they can understand how to apply it for their business. Other than that, recently, our company has had the opportunity to become an instructional skills certification provider. That means that if someone is interested in becoming a Microsoft certified trainer, we're able to help them start that journey and help them to get the skills necessary for teaching other people and making sure that they can communicate how they need to for the students. Feel free to connect with me, and I will have a link tree at the end of this presentation with all of my contact info, as well as some links that I'll be sharing throughout. And then also, if you're curious about Microsoft Base Kanazawa, I know that Microsoft Base is a Japan-only concept right now. So if you're curious about what that is and what it entails, feel free to check out our page here. You can also learn more about Microsoft Base across all of Japan by looking up Microsoft Base in your browser. Just some quick expectations for today's session. I do like to have a lively open discussion, so where appropriate, I will actually allow microphone access, and then I will be making sure to monitor that. Conversations in chat are always welcome, and if you see me moving my head back and forth, I am probably checking the chat to make sure that I'm not missing anyone's comments or questions. You can also raise your hand if you do have a question, and where appropriate, I will take time to address any questions that you might have. So I just wanted to start off and ask, has anybody here ever taught material that was translated from English to another material, and not necessarily Microsoft official courseware, but any content? Have you ever taught something that was originally in English but was translated later? Okay, I see one hand up, a physical hand. So if you could just briefly let us know, what type of content were you teaching? What language was that?
Yeah, it was critical skills from English to Arabic and Arabic to English.
Oh, you speak Arabic.
Yes. Yeah, my father's
Okay,
Lebanese.
very. Okay, and then I'm trying, give me 1 second here. I think if I push right here, everyone else should be able to access mic. So if you're able to, yes, Chintan, go ahead. And let's see.
Yeah, so I actually had to teach Exao in a language called Gujarati. It is a dialect of Hindi.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so when you're teaching in a language that's originally English for the source material, and then both of you shared your experience having to teach in those languages, I'm sure that there's a lot of things that you want to take care of to make sure that material is conveyed properly and that your audience is able to understand the message. So thank you for sharing that. Was there anyone else? I think I saw one other hand up. If not, that's totally fine. And if you've only taught in English, that's also great too. There's also some key points in here. Maybe you'll have students in your class who are able to learn in English, but also their native tongue might not be English. And so there's some considerations to have as well, so that you have the option for them to reference what you're speaking about in their native tongue as well, while they also listen to you speak in English. So I do want to go over that later, but thank you for sharing your experiences. So just for a content outline, first I wanted to explain the process. So how do we even get the content that we have that is translated from Microsoft? What's kind of the behind the scenes there? And then I wanted to discuss teaching a localized course, where you are teaching a course that is in a separate language, and then also hosting inclusive lessons. So your main language might still be English as is, but maybe you have some considerations for your few students who might need the assistive language tools. So first, just kind of going over the process of how we get our localized courses, where they come from. So Worldwide Learning in Microsoft is a division that handles all of our exams, Microsoft Learn content, the courseware that Microsoft certified trainers are teaching. And how it works is that first, the text is taken from the original English source that it is written in, and that includes the graphics as well. They strip all of the text from that source material. And then they're able to use some terminology from a database that they have, and they use that database to apply the appropriate language. So when we're talking about language, you have to understand there are synonyms on both sides of English and also the target language. And so you have to determine which target word you want to use to keep the same branding, the same messaging across Microsoft content, so that they can keep it consistent for the people who are learning as much as possible. And then depending on the priority of the item, it might also be reviewed by a native speaker, so they can confirm that this is how they want that to be conveyed. So actually, the database that they're using is a public tool that we can all reference. So I wanted to take a second to look at that and kind of get a feel for how that is working. So this is the Microsoft terminology search, and I will actually be dropping that link into chat as well so that you're able to reference it while I'm talking. And the terminology search allows you to see which term is being matched to what word and also what technology in Microsoft it is being used for. So this is a great reference tool to see why a word might have been translated the way it was. So we could search for our term here. Information might be our source term, and I can select my language. So I'll be using Japanese. I'm a little bit biased. Okay. And then if I search the Japanese, I'm sorry, it got deleted here, but we'll search information again. And I could search for something such as business information, right? And if I select business information, the term here is shown in Japanese. It also gives me some context. Is this gender specific? They don't have that in Japanese, so this will always be not selected. And then it will also mention if there's a part of speech and if there's any specific technology that this is being used for. So business information gets used in Office Online, and I have that as reference for where I might come across this term. And so as a trainer, this is useful information because you can cross-reference any word that you think might be out of place, and you can kind of try and understand what is trying to be conveyed. And maybe there's a misunderstanding on our part, or maybe there's a correction that can be made and improvement. But this is a very valuable tool, and I'm very grateful that Microsoft has made it public for us because you're able to see, kind of get a behind the scenes peek at how these things are translated. It's a very interesting resource to have. And so then the result of that is that we get our localized courses. So there are 64 courses originally in English, and depending on the language that you are teaching in, those will have different availability amounts. So we can do a guessing game. Does anybody want to guess what language has the most content translated for courses currently? And you can type in chat your guesses. What language do we think? There's 13 languages here on the courseware. Which language has the most translated? Does anyone have any idea? Okay, I see some Spanish. That was my first reaction. I thought it must surely be Spanish. I see one other person typing. Oh, maybe not. So actually, if we look at it here, Mandarin could be Mandarin. Okay. Well, let's see. Spanish, we actually have 14 courses that are fully available in Spanish, or at least publicly announced as fully available. This is a public resource that anybody can access. So I'll post this link in chat too, and you can reference what courses are available outside of English. But if I gave the link to you too early, then you would just check and you would beat me to the punchline. So actually, the language with the most courseware that has been localized is Japanese. So yeah, little bit of a pride point for me there, but happy to say that Japanese has the most translated content, followed by something like I saw Mandarin, which yes, Mandarin does have quite a few with 29. So you can kind of get a feel for the pacing of which languages are needed. I would say that in general, some of the large markets that are far away from English tend to get translated pretty quickly. And then after that, it's kind of in order of the priority that the market has within those different areas. Some of your European areas, English is a little bit easier to use in those areas. And as such, because English is viable enough, the translation for the course materials are not fully done through and through for that. Whereas in Japan, English is almost never used in a business setting. It's very difficult because the language is so different. And so it makes sense to have the course completely fleshed out in Japanese. So if you're ever curious about what courses are available, feel free to reference this anytime. You can sort by the product and the language and see what is out there. All right, some things to watch out for, because nothing is perfect and we need to be prepared for that as trainers. If we're teaching, we want people to understand the reality of the tools we're using. There's a pink message at the top of your content in Microsoft Learn. Could indicate either one of two things. If there's no translation available, it will just be an English message that says there's no translation available. So that's easy enough to understand. If it is a message in a separate language, then it's probably indicating to you that it was machine translated and possibly not reviewed by a native yet. So here it says in this Japanese that this topic has machine translated material included within the content. And so it's not necessarily a guarantee of authenticity or quality. Even then, translations are not always perfect, and your students need to be aware of that. If you set the expectations in advance, I've found it's a lot easier rather than not saying anything, and then your students are like, wow, I can't understand what it says here. It's a lot better as a trainer to be in control of the expectation and the delivery of that. So when your students are coming across it, they understand why things are the way they are, and then also you can guide them for the correct message and how to understand what is being written. So that's why I try and set the expectations as soon as possible. And then also let your students know, aside from us as trainers, your students are also able to provide feedback on language. And I feel a lot of us maybe don't provide feedback because we don't feel it's useful, or we're not sure if it's going to be read. But out of curiosity, who here has ever provided feedback on content before? It doesn't have to necessarily be Microsoft, but you've left feedback so that something can be improved, whether it be like an application or whether it be a website. Are there any feedback lovers here? Yeah, I think it's not surprising that, a lot of times we might be reluctant to write feedback. It could seem as like extra work for us, and we're not sure if it will be read. But I've actually spoken with the people from Worldwide Learning who are in charge of translation a few times, and I've had the pleasure of discussing with them, and I definitely felt that they were very interested in getting honest feedback and trying to improve it. So I would say, at least for Microsoft content, if there is something that you feel needs improving or needs a review, I think it is very worth it to leave feedback. And so I did want to show you very quickly how we can do that. So this is something great as trainers to guide your students for, as we allow our learners to leave effective feedback, and then also as trainers for us to leave effective feedback, we can improve the quality of these products for other trainers and other learners. So if we were to go to any page, so for example, our Viva Apps description page for our Microsoft 900 course, MS 900, and then we go to the bottom and we see reporting an issue. And then we open the learning content quality type of feedback. And here you can say issues with translation quality, and you can leave feedback about translation or anything else as well, so that Microsoft is aware that maybe something does need to be reviewed and that they can move for improvement. On the contrary, if we don't let them know, then I feel like it's hard for anyone to say this needs review if no one has raised their hand and mentioned about it. And then also, one place that I have started to leave feedback is the exams themselves. So I have a sandbox exam open here. Has anybody ever left feedback for a Microsoft certified exam, even in your own native English tongue, or whatever language that is that you might speak? I see Michael. Oh, hi, Michael. How are you doing? Yeah, I definitely leave feedback where it needs it. Ah, thank you, Chintan. So we want to leave feedback because not only just for us to have a good time at taking the exam and understand material, but we want all of our students as well to have a easier time understanding the material, and we want it to be high quality for everyone. And so I think leaving feedback for the exams is critical as well. And again, this is something that your learners who are coming to your courses as Microsoft trainers who are potentially buying those exam vouchers from you as a training service partner, they should be aware that they can leave feedback on the translation rather than just saying, oh, well, this is what it is and it can't be fixed. It's actually very easy to leave feedback on an exam because it is done outside of your exam time. So all you need to do is leave a little mark here. And then once all of your exam questions are finished, then after you finish, you'll be able to leave an exam. And then you can give feedback. So here's the question I marked for feedback, and I can open the give feedback window. And then I can let you know that the language was maybe confusing, and then leave my comment here about bells versus chimes. Okay. And then now they know that there needs to be a review of the wording for bells versus chimes. Maybe it was unclear. So again, as a trainer, the value add for us is that we're able to create a better quality experience from learning to certification, because that's ultimately our end goal when we're trying to train people, is we're trying to help them learn these new skills and gain confidence and allow them to succeed. And part of that is making sure that what we are providing is of the highest quality. So definitely make sure everyone is aware that they can leave feedback and we can link that towards improving the tools that we're working with. So now that we know kind of the behind the scenes and how all of this comes together, I wanted to talk about teaching one of those localized courses. And I think the biggest thing for teaching a localized course is going to be from the preparation that comes with it for any course, but especially for a localized course. I think there is a little bit of extra work that needs to go in to make sure that your course is ready to go, because there's a lot that can go wrong if you're not ready for the transition from English source material to other language. Maury and Chintan both spoke up about them teaching content in other languages, and I'm sure it takes a lot of prep work to make sure that that's ready for your class. It's very critical to make sure that we have that prep work done so that you can minimize any mistakes when you're actually delivering that day and reduce your stress as a trainer as well. So you want to confirm the courses that are available and the languages using courseware title plan, or you could also just use the publicly available course sheet on Microsoft Learn. You can also discuss with your training service provider or reach out to Microsoft through your training service provider if the language is not available. There are steps that you can take, but it's usually a case-by-case basis. So that is something to be aware of. If you are delivering in a language that is not your own, I highly recommend practicing it at least once. You want to make sure that there are words that you can say and you can articulate what it is that needs to be said so that the learners can still have a professional experience from you. And we want to review the materials, confirm how we would be talking about them. And a big one is checking the lab steps. I've noticed with Microsoft, and especially Microsoft lab steps that are direct from the courses, sometimes the lab steps are translated separately from the products themselves. And as a result, you might get something where it's telling you to deactivate a column for their practice. Please go and disable this item here. But then the name in the actual lab is different. And that's no fault to the lab providers. Lab providers are taking the tools as is and the GitHub instructions as is, and they're using that to create the environment. But as trainers, if we notice that, then that's something that we need to bring up in the quality control on whether on GitHub or the Microsoft communities that we have. So just wanted to put that out there, that when a lab provider is taking those instructions, they're taking them for the most part as provided by Microsoft. And then we're taking the checklist and making sure there's no misses. So quick question, has anybody here ever been to Japan? You can raise hand, you can throw it into the chat, but has anybody here ever been to Japan before? Oh, you have, Barry. So Barry, if it's okay, could I unmute you, and would you be willing to tell me a little bit about your experience in Japan?
So my wife works for a medical technology company, and she had meetings that she had to go to, and then we were going to go around. We did go around Japan after her meetings were done. So while she was in her meetings, I got to explore uh, all over, actually. Well, mostly around Tokyo. It was beautiful. I had easy time navigating. There was English and Japanese everywhere. The announcements on the trains were English and Japanese. I had a fantastic time. It was great. I'd love to go back.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that. And actually, I'm so glad you said that. So you were on the trains, I heard you mention.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a little bit of a analogy to make. Were you able to watch the train conductors at all when you were going on and off the trains?
No, I didn't see the conductors. No, not while I was.
Okay. So train conductors in Japan actually have a very rigid set of rules, like most things in Japan. And they have to make sure that they follow things very carefully. And when the train conductor is doing their job, they're actually saying out loud everything on their checklist to make sure there's no possible way that they could have missed any step. So they'll go through their list and they'll say, okay, I have closed the doors. And then they'll go inside and they'll say, all passengers are aboard. I have disengaged the brake. And they're going through this, and even if nobody is around to hear it, they are vocalizing all of them. It's very interesting to watch if you ever get a chance. And so I'm not saying that necessarily as a Microsoft certified trainer, you need to vocalize everything on your checklist. But I do want to suggest that we have a checklist, especially if we are teaching something in a second language, because there's a lot of prep items that it's easy to miss one or two here or there. Thank you for your experience, Barry. I appreciated that. So,
Welcome.
we could confirm the teacher and student desktop language, operating system, the tools within, all of those. We want to confirm that the language is matched up. You know, you're going to waste class time if they boot up and it's in the wrong language, and then you have to change that. And I think we all have experience where if you've ever changed a language on a computer before, sometimes it takes a little bit for all of the screens to catch up. You might have to close them and open them a few times. And so we want all of our demo software as well, whether it be Power Platform, Microsoft 365, whatever it may be. We want that to be in our presentation language. If it's not, then, you know, it might give off the impression that maybe you're not as prepared or things are not going as planned. And so we want it to be a smooth, seamless experience for our learners as much as possible. If you have a key video that you really want to drive home a point with, on the spot subtitles translations are great. They're a really awesome feature to have. But if that video is very critical for your presentation, I recommend adding your own subtitles. So I've started to do that for videos that I know I will be using many times. It's possible to go in and add your own subtitles, whether it be in YouTube or an embedded video in PowerPoint. And then I also like to check my slides for any errors that might be provided from Microsoft or what have you. And then just make sure that my any language tools that I'm using are functioning and test them. And then confirm that my labs are functioning and test them as well for any possible language snags. So this is the type of list I'm going through, and I'm checking to make sure I have everything ready for a smooth experience. Are there any other ideas that you might have of things that you always like to put into your prep checklist? Any other best practices that anybody has experienced when preparing a lesson? And it doesn't have to be language related, just anything you always want to check before your class starts. Feel free to comment. As experienced as we are with the technology and using it in our day-to-day, it still pays off to make sure that all of the fine details are set up before you go into your presentation. So I did want to show you one other thing. XtremeLabs is the Microsoft Certified Trainer Readiness tool or readiness platform. And so what that means is that the authorized lab handlers are able to take the labs, or authorized lab hosters, excuse me, are able to take those labs, and Microsoft certified trainers can log in and check them beforehand. So this is a really great benefit we have, because not only does it help you to prepare for your class, it's also a great study resource, I find. So you're able to access that here, and I will be posting this link into chat as well. This is from XtremeLabs page. But if you are a Microsoft certified trainer, this is a benefit that is available for you. And it is a great benefit. I think everybody should be taking advantage of it so that they are familiar with the material and that they are able to give a smooth experience for their learners.
Yeah, thank you for that, Joshua. One thing to add, as an MCT, you get access to these labs for free, but please note that these labs are for your self-study, self-improvement, not for public use. What does that mean? That means if you're running a class, whether it's for 1 student or 1,000 students, you're not allowed to use the free codes given to you as an MCT through the readiness program. Those come on a different platform.
100%. That is a very critical point. You're not to use these labs for even for demo purposes to throw on your projector. You should be getting that separately from a different platform, as Maury mentioned. So thank you for covering all my bases there. I appreciate it.
Good.
All right. So this is all great, but maybe you only teach in English, or maybe the language that you teach is not going to have the fully translated localized steps. Well, even then, I think that there's still some software and tools that we should be aware of, where if you have a student who English might not be their first term, or whatever your class language, I could be teaching in Japan, and someone from a nearby country could be living in Japan. It's completely possible, and they could come to my course, and they want to have some reference in a language that is not the main language that I'm presenting in. Well, you can have various people, and you want to have the deep care for your learners. Let them know that they're important. We're working with people as much as we need to report things, and we need our metrics and KPIs, and all of those. At the end of the day, those numbers are actual real people. And when you show those people that you care by going out of your way to prepare just a little bit more for them, I think it really reflects in how they view you as a trainer. You know, they'll have a greater trust for you, and I think they'll be more motivated to participate in class, and you'll have better impressions, and you'll have better reviews as a result. So it's a win-win situation when you just go a little bit further and show your learners that you really do care about them. And so aside from just language itself, there might be other learning challenges that a learner might face, and we want to make sure that we're inclusive and that everybody can participate. And so language and accessibility tools are usually hand in hand. Two very easy ones to use: Microsoft Translator and Microsoft Teams. Closed caption features. Both of these are allowing us to translate in real time what someone is speaking, and you can show the translated text and have that display as subtitles. And so Microsoft Translator, that's going to be on their mobile device. You can just open that up, and the audio picks up from what is being used in the room, and it translates in kind of like a teleprompter fashion, and it's going up onto the phone and showing the student what the speaker is saying. A lot of colleges use this from what I was seeing, Microsoft success stories, and I think it's something that we can use as trainers as well. And also there's closed captions. Do be aware, you'll need Teams Premium to have the translation feature on. So if that is something that you could see as being beneficial, I think it's always great to have this. You don't even need to be online to use this feature too. You could join a meeting and just have that picking up the conversation in the room and have that translate as there. That's a completely fine use case, I think. Another thing you can do, and here's just a little demonstration of it, is has anyone here ever used PowerPoint Live? PowerPoint Live to show their presentations or something that they're wanting to present with someone? Yeah, PowerPoint Live, we love it. So PowerPoint Live is great because you're able to translate slides right there. And your students are able to pick the language that they want to see. So if your student is not in the same language as you, then they're able to pick their language and it shows. You do want to be aware that there can be some text skew. So it's not going to be perfect. You want to maybe leave some room because things will shift. Fonts are different in different languages. But this is really great. You can do it straight there from in Teams, or you can open it in Microsoft 365 PowerPoint, and you can just do a live presentation from there as well. So this is really great for showing material in a different language very quickly without having to go in and translate all of that text manually. So just as a quick review of what we've gone over so far, we've talked about the process where worldwide learning is taking the source material. Again, typically Microsoft instructional material is usually made in English first, and then it is translated to other languages based on the market size and the priority and the needs of that region. How much English would not be viable for that region. Aside from that, we also discussed teaching a localized course and kind of making sure that we're prepped for that. We want to be aware of the potential snags, and I think it's something that can change depending on what your needs are for your class. So the sample checklist that I put out is not the be-all end-all of preparation checklists for Microsoft Certified Trainers. It's going to depend on your teaching style and what your learners need. And I think that that's a critical skill that we need to have, is understanding what our learners need. And then we want to just have inclusive lessons. We want to make sure that everyone attending has options available to them, whether it be PowerPoint Live or live captions from Translator or from Teams. We want to make sure that people can understand what is being presented, because the content that we're teaching is not necessarily always easy. And so we want to make sure that we are providing it in as much of a understandable format as possible. One last quote to close us off, just because, again, it's language. So I felt having quotes about language would be a little bit meta. One language sets you in a corridor for life. 2 languages open every door along the way. And so I think a few of us in this conversation, maybe you have learned a second language. I think programming languages count as a second language too. So if you're on the fence about learning a new language or a new skill to communicate, I think definitely that you'll find it's very rewarding. I personally am a big proponent of learning anything that can help others around me and using those skills to better others. And I think that as Microsoft certified trainers in this community, it would help us so much if we're able to communicate things in a way that makes sense for our learners. At the end of the day, that's our main goal, is making sure that the learners can comfortably participate in our class, and we can lead to a discussion that is beneficial for the trainer and beneficial for the learners. So as we're closing out, I did want to actually go into Q&A. So if anybody has any questions or anything that they've been wondering about in regards to being a Microsoft certified trainer, and this can be general questions as well. Yes, Chintan, I think I see your hand up. You can go ahead and come off of mute.
Yeah, so one of the things I have in my checklist is making sure that I have accommodated all sorts of things around accessibility. And whilst I think a lot of MCTs in general don't think about that, it's just that the audience may not always be upfront about it. They might be shy to actually talk about their disability. And so that if you do put inside your slides, or even you speak about it at the beginning, that if you require closed captioning or you require something else, this is available to you, and it just shows that you absolutely do care.
Oh yes, thank you so much. In fact,
And
there's a oh, go ahead, sorry.
Sorry, one more thing is that maybe a question for you then as well is that do you think Microsoft is doing enough for localizing and maybe if we talk about different languages, but I don't know if it's a thing in Japan. Like, what do you do if somebody has a language barrier, but they also have a disability? Like in your where you are based, how is it treated, and are you also required to accommodate that, or is it highly regarded, or is it something that people have to try and work out on their own?
Okay, so just going in order, the first question was about the Microsoft localization and how that is currently. I know that there is always a pending list of things to be translated, and so I think that there is an effort being made. I think that if we have a little bit more of resources put into that, obviously it would be good for a lot of people. There are a lot of languages that are not listed. Having 12 languages other than English is great, but as we're all aware, there's many, many more languages than 12. So hopefully in the future we can get more support for localization. I think it's something that a lot of people would benefit from. And just better guidelines is one thing that I want. Even though I speak one of the languages that is more supported, it was still a little bit unclear how to proceed. So that is one thing that I look forward to, is better expectations and guidelines for if you're not teaching in English, because there are 34 courses that are not Japanese, and I wasn't really sure how to approach those at the beginning. As far as my experience teaching in Japan, for people who might have multiple layers of support needs, so it could be language plus some sort of maybe it's a disability that they have, or it's some sort of learning disadvantage they might have. So in Japan, surprisingly, I have only had 2 students so far, and I live in a more rural area, so there's not a lot of cultural mixing. But I've only had 2 students who were not native Japanese speakers, and even then, those 2 students were very, very bright and were very, very proficient in Japanese. But I did ask them and make sure that they were aware that I was willing to offer them some English or take breaks and explain something in English if needed. But in general, they were very self-sufficient. As far as learning disadvantages, I would say that I personally have not had anyone tell me directly, and it is something that you can't always tell. So I really like your suggestion and your best practice of having something at the beginning where if you want closed captions, that is something that we can provide. I think that's something that I want to start doing better, to make sure that my students are aware that that's something extra in case it's something that they need. Especially in Japan, a lot of people are very, just as a cultural standpoint, a lot of people are very hesitant to want to, impose on somebody else or be a burden. And so I think offering from me would help a lot of people. And so I think that's something that I do want to start doing more. So I really appreciate your feedback and your advice. Let's see. I had a question from Michael in the chat. What's the best way to learn a new language? It would be great to see some resources around learning new languages come to the MCT community. I agree. I half jokingly, half seriously suggested we have ESL classes for Microsoft certified trainers who are outside English learning communities, but I also think it is a realistic skill that would be great to have as a trainer. If you speak more than one language, you're suddenly able to teach to more than one audience. For me, learning language, I was originally studying in high school, and it was not very effective. I wasn't the best student either, but putting that aside, immersion was 100% the best thing for me. And now that we're in the digital age, I think it's more realistic than ever to be immersed. One thing that I will say, now that Microsoft certified trainers have communities that are more geared to their local region, it would be more possible for you to go to other geographic communities and kind of mix with those hubs and try and get to know people from other languages. As far as I'm aware, there's no rule that says you can only participate and interact with people in your Microsoft Hub. And so I think one good way is to make friends who are in your target language, especially if they're trainers. You'll have a lot of common ground to talk about, and they could be a great source to practice and help you get that virtual immersion. So, great question. It would be really cool if we had official language resources in Microsoft Learn, but we still have a little bit more time for questions. If there was any other questions, feel free to ask, and it could be in chat, or you could you could raise your hand and we could have you unmute your microphone. And it doesn't need to be language oriented either. Maybe you are tuning in and you are not a Microsoft certified trainer yet. You might have some questions about becoming a Microsoft certified trainer. You might have some questions about the authorized lab hosters. If you have any questions, aside from language questions, it's completely fine to ask those as well. We would definitely like to help and answer anything that you might be wondering about. We'll give it about 10 more seconds if anyone has anything else. Oh, I do see someone typing. Yes. I will give the link for the XtremeLabs site.
I'll also add my contact information to everyone. Most of you know me, but just in case. And also, Barry, you'll want to add your contact information. So for those of you who have been in this world for a little while with the MCT program and Microsoft, you'll see that Barry, who's also on this call, used to be with Orvado and their marketplace. And he has joined our team. I'll talk quickly about the marketplace. So up to July 1, Microsoft had its content, labs, exam vouchers, what have you. Coursera marketplace that shut down July 1. So XtremeLabs has created its own marketplace where we have content, labs, exam vouchers, and also we have other products besides just Microsoft, such as CompTIA, cybersecurity courses, Python, and so on. So feel free to reach out to me or Barry if you have any questions. Also, forgot to mention that to you before, Joshua, in case you have content that you would like to park on our marketplace. Our vision is to make it the next Amazon of IT content, Microsoft content, what have you. So if you have any of you have any content that you'd like to have us promote / sell for you, we'll be happy to have that conversation.
Oh, that's wonderful news to hear. Thank you.
Yeah.
I did see a hand go up. Chintan, did you have a question?
I'm trying to use a chat, but I can't actually use it. But anyway, I would just say that I'm currently learning French and Japanese using the Pimsleur language series.
Oh, what is that?
So Pimsleur, Pimsleur, is a set of language tools that the US government actually makes use of.
Oh, that was Pimsleur?
Yeah, I wish I could share the link, but the chat doesn't seem to work on mobile at the moment. But yeah,
Okay.
That's what I'm currently using. Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. Thank you for that comment.
Awesome.
Yeah, I wish everybody the best in any of their language endeavors, in any of their technical skills leveling up endeavors. I think that everyone in this community is very learning oriented, whether it be for themselves or for our students. And I think that's one thing that I really appreciate. And thank you for your comments about the marketplace, Maury. I think that's going to really accelerate learning. And I hope that that can be a tool that we can use effectively to promote IT learning of all types. So that's a very exciting announcement. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm not a teacher, just to be clear, but I've been in this industry for 29 years. A lot of changes have happened over the last 29 years, all positive, I need to say. So this is just another venue, another platform, another area where you as trainers can reach out to us if you have a need for a lab for content, and then if we don't have it, we'll definitely help you to find it.
Thank you. All right. From me, that's everything. Did you have any other closing remarks, Morty?
I'm good. Just want to say thank you to everyone for taking the time out of your day, evening, night, morning. I know that some of you probably have been teaching all day long and taking care of possibly family, cats, dogs, children, what have you, and then coming to this. So I definitely want to say thank you for making the effort to get here. And then let's see, Barry, what did you put on?
Oh, he posted the link for Chintan since he wasn't able to. Thank you, Barry.
Oh, okay.
Welcome.
All right. So in conclusion, if anybody would like to be a participant in the future sessions like these, today is about learning and teaching in different language. That said, there are hundreds and thousands of different topics. Feel free to reach out to me or Barry, and we'll set you up for a future session. Thank you for joining today.
Thank you, everybody, for attending. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to further sessions.
This session, by the way, is recorded. So for those of you interested, we can send it to you. It'll also be in our blog and social media, what have you. And then Joshua, of course, you can post it in your own area.
Yes. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Excellent. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks,
evening.
Joshua. Great session.
Thank you, everybody. Hope you have a great day.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.